You are listening to Adoptees On, the podcast where adoptees discuss the adoption experience. This is Season 1, Episode 8, Diane. I'm your host, Haley Radke. Today we'll be talking to Diane Wheaton, a fellow adoptee who is in reunion with her biological mother. We talk about letting go of the idealized picture of reunion and some hard truths about the seemingly permanent place of unsettledness and ambivalence that Diane has come to. As always, we'll wrap up with some recommended resources. I'd like to welcome Diane Wheaton to the show to share her story with us today.
Hello, Haley. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you were willing to come share your story with us. Would you mind starting out by just telling us a little bit about your adoptee journey?
Yeah, I was born in 1956 in California, and I was relinquished at 2 weeks old and put into foster care. I was in foster care until until I was cleared for adoption by the doctor. So I was adopted at 2.5 months old by my parents and formally adopted at 18 months old. So that's when my journey with my parents and being adopted happened at 2.5 months.
Okay, and do you know why your adoptive family chose to adopt?
My mother had lost 6 babies.
Oh.
And yes. And so that was pretty traumatic and pretty tough. They, wanted a family. They had been married a long time. They were married 13 years when they adopted me. So they had been together, and they were high school sweethearts. They had been together a long time, and my mother could not carry children, could not carry a baby. So they decided to adopt, and that was, the beginning. And I was adopted, and then 5 years later, they adopted another baby, my brother, and he was about 6 months old when he was adopted. And so it was the two of us, my brother and I, and both of us were adopted. And that was our little family.
And do you know why you were relinquished?
My birth mother was 23, and my birth father was a divorced man of 26, so they weren't really young. They were engaged to be married. I've been told by my birth mother that he was the love of her life, and somewhere along the line, it fell, the relationship. He went to California to find a job. He was a graphic artist, and she moved to California. I'm sure she followed him. That was what my state NID had said. I know from my state NID, from the social worker giving me all the information from my original birth file from the state, that he knew about me, knew about my birth. My birth name includes his surname on the birth certificate, which I hear is not common. He just didn't want to marry my mother, so I don't know really what happened with that. I am in reunion with my birth mom, and the story she gave me when I met her is different than the story she gave the social worker. So I've been told to go by what she said when she was 23, not so much, many decades later. That's the story.
That's odd. So do you think that she's created some new story in her mind, or that she was dishonest in the beginning?
It's hard to know. It really is. Yeah. It's just interesting that my birth father is on my birth certificate and that I have a surname. That is one clue that it's like, that's really interesting. So I don't know. I have even been told that it's quite possible that they were married. So my birth mom does keep a lot of things, secret from me. I don't really, sometimes it's a guessing game. I have to put clues together, and it's a puzzle of things that she says. That's a fact that, I have his name, and I guess they were engaged. So, that's kind of neat to know, but sad at the same time. And
so how did you find her?
I grew up not knowing where I was born. I never could talk to my adoptive parents about any of this. They never knew I searched. They passed away in '09. So I was never able to ask them specific things or like, why isn't the hospital where I was born, why isn't that on my amended birth certificate? When I started searching, I had to go first to Sacramento because everything that my adoptive parents told me was not true. I had to go step by step by step. The first thing I had to do was find out what county I was born in and then the hospital. So once I found out from my social worker with my NID, she's the one that told me that I was born in a Salvation Army Booth Memorial Hospital. It was for unwed mothers. They were very prevalent at the time throughout the United States. I'm not sure if they were in Canada or not, but they were in the United States. Because of that, I think the year before I started searching in 2003, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that like the previous year, Salvation Army made a decision that they would actually help adoptees and birth mothers reunite if you were born in one of their hospitals. So I was very fortunate once I found out, months and months later in my search that I was born in a Booth Memorial Hospital, because then I had a caseworker. And it was through that caseworker that my birth mother was found. She was found right away. However, she did not respond for 5 months. Meanwhile, throughout this whole time frame, I had an online support group for adoptees born in California, and we were trying to find her ourselves. But it was basically through the Salvation Army because they had her information. They had her name, they had her social security number, they had all the, information. So they were able to, she popped up right away. She just didn't respond for a long time, 2 letters, and then she responded. So that's how we found her. I had hired private searchers in the state that I knew that she was born. My birth name is a common name, her surname, her maiden name, but it was almost hopeless because you don't have you have, when you get an NID, non-identifying information, you don't have their names, you don't have their birth date, you don't have the city where they were born. The only thing I had was what she looked like and the state where she was born, and that was it. And with a common surname, millions, thousands. So it was very difficult. It was very defeating. And I'm so grateful for Salvation Army that I was able to use their, databases, and they were able to find her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that she responded.
So what was that first response from her?
Well, that was just amazing. That really was so surreal, hearing her voice for the first time. It was like, I didn't breathe for an hour. It was, it's just like a dream come true. You fantasize, and, I spent my whole life fantasizing about this woman, my birth mother. I just could not believe, it was just so hard to believe that I was actually hearing her voice and that I was actually talking to her. And, it was wonderful. It was magical. It was a magical moment, definitely. Nothing in my life could prepare me for that, or I couldn't compare anything in my life for that. As an adoptee, I think that we all fantasize, or a lot of us, and we don't, of course, don't have anything to compare that to, that time when you speak to them for the first time and hear their voice.
So did she phone you?
Yes, she did. Yes. The caseworker controlled the reunion in the beginning, and so she gave her my phone number, and so I waited for her to call, and then we were off on our own. So that was good.
And what were some of the first things that you talked about on that phone call?
She was very giving, I would say, and she immediately said all the things that you wanted to hear. That she loved me, and always loved me, and always thought of me, and she was so sorry that she had to relinquish me, and it was just the times, and she wished that she could have raised me. And so that was very cathartic and very healing to hear her, the first things that she was saying to me, in an apologetic tone, and it sounded very sincere. And I know that she is sincere in that particular instance. And she wanted to know I have children, and so they're her grandchildren, and we spoke about my children and my life. I'm trying to think back. This was 12 years ago, and I'm trying to think back. It was surface, but it was good. It was just a really good. I have really fond memories of that first hour phone call, and like I said, I felt like I didn't breathe. It was just, I'm high, way up on the ceiling, talking to her.
Hmm.
Yeah, just it was hard. It was hard to come down, and we left, on a very high note. I know that she was very excited, to be connect with me. I would have to say I'm not the first child that connected with her. So I have other she's relinquished other children. So, and I found out that I wasn't the first one to reconnect with her. So she was more savvy in how to do this than I was at the time. We met 2 months later. We spoke on the phone probably every week, if not once or twice a week, until we met 2 months later. This was such a moment for me after, searching for her, being obsessed about it for over a year, searching in my mind for her practically my whole life. So I made, a nice hotel, club level, Andre Bocelli playing, candles. I mean, this was a moment for me. I mean, I just was so excited. And, but, I have to say that I was so naive also, even though I was prepared that things may not go as I had hoped. It's still the excitement of finally meeting this woman and seeing, I had my children that I could look at and see myself in, but I had never seen anyone that was, my peer or older that I was related to. And that was so meaningful for me. I just couldn't imagine what that would be like in that moment, seeing someone that I was connected to, that and my mother, it was a pretty big moment, and I wanted to make it very special for her and for me. We met, and it was very difficult. She's had a very This is when I found out, and this is where where I was naive. She had a very difficult life, and I have not had not at that point in my life. And I really wasn't aware of how difficult life can be for some people, then especially someone I would be related to or really would know. And I was quite taken aback by all the sadness that I heard. We sat up there for hours, and everyone's life was hard and sad, and it was not what I expected at all. It was very hard. I found things out that she was really trying to hide and kept secret from me. And that was difficult. And our reunion in person was not like our phone call. And that was tough. Yeah, it was a hard weekend.
Have you kept in contact with her after that?
Yes, I have. I definitely had. I found out in that meeting that I know that I have an older sister who has not been found, and she's a year older than I am. But I also found at that meeting that I had another sister who was relinquished 2 years younger than I was. That was tough. And I found out I'm number two of seven children. So I have a lot of siblings. And then again, everything I found I was hoping for just wasn't going to happen. But I have kept in contact with her over the years. It took me years, I think 3 or 4 years, to meet my siblings. She really wanted me to stay a secret because I think I had said that I had another sister who reunited, and she didn't really want anyone to know that, she had another child that she relinquished. So that was really difficult for me, but, still it was the connection with my birth mom. I didn't want to give that up. And I met my sister, and we had our own little family thing going on for a few years. But I heard so much all the time about my siblings and my other sister. My sister had been in contact with them and had really wanted me to know them too. And so I did meet them. And like I said, it took me a few years. I did meet them. And eventually I met my cousins. I have like 10 first cousins. I would say now I am in a friendly place with my mother. It's really a more on the surface level. And I would say with my siblings, it's the same way with them as well over the years. I think in the beginning, the first few years of reunion, it was like a honeymoon, but things change, life settles down. And I do think it's sometimes difficult to have relationships with people, even though we are blood related. We didn't grow up together and we don't have the same experiences. We don't have the same childhood memories. We grew up very differently from each other. That makes a big difference. We're friendly and, I'm happy about that. I probably have a closer relationship with my cousins than I do with my own siblings. And I'm happy and grateful for that. And I'm thrilled that I've met my family. Now I know, now I know what ethnicity I am. I've been able to see people who look like me. In that sense, it certainly was wonderful and still is. It just didn't work out the way that you fantasize, and hope for something. It's not the Antoine Fisher welcoming dinner. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
That's really a good film about an adoptee. And there's a scene in there where he's welcomed with all his birth family and a wonderful, huge dinner. And there's aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters. And so, I think that's just an adoptee fantasy, no matter, how old you are. It's not realistic, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is that way. And I have to say that in some of family members of mine, that it has been like that, but overall it has not. But that's okay. I'm accepting of it. I feel okay about it.
It's so odd when our reality doesn't meet with our expectations, and it can take us a long time to get to that place of acceptance.
Yeah, it took me years. And, and some of my cousins, I've been closer to others, and I'm still in reunion. I'm still meeting family members. I'm still considered a secret with my birth mom outside of the immediate family circle. And I guess I've learned to accept that as well, that I've decided that for some deep emotional reason, I suppose that I still want to always have a connection with her. And that is what I've chosen to do. I have missed out on meeting an uncle because she he's passed on just a year ago. So it can be a very, difficult walk sometimes and joyous at the same time. I think I feel like my adoptee experience has been like ambivalent. And, with my adoptive parents and with my birth mother and my relationships within my own, biological family, it is acceptance of just how it is. Like we were saying, that fantasy, that's what it is a fantasy.
Have you ever wanted to search for your biological father?
I would really, really like to search for him. I have his name and I know that he was a graphic artist, and that is all I know. And that is all she will tell me. She will not give me any information on him whatsoever. So I thought of doing the ancestry DNA, and see what pops up. So I've kind of thought about doing that, and I can work on this the rest of my life. The census, he has, a very common name that's in the South as well. I can probably do what I can do. I would love to find him, especially because one of the first things my birth mother said was, "You look just like your father." Like, oh yeah, figures, right?
You look just like him, but I'm not going to tell you anything about him besides that.
Right.
Oh,
And
sorry.
and she said, I have his personality. I think that there's, definitely some truth in that. Yeah, my half siblings are half Native American, so there's no resemblance with them. And then 9 of my 10 first cousins are half Samoan, so there isn't really a lot of mirroring, going on. Yeah, a little bit, but not much with my siblings and cousins. I would love to know about him and what is his story, but I am going to do the DNA. I am going to do that because I can be told that he's Irish, but is he? I don't know. That would be a great thing. I would love to do that, but she won't share. She says she doesn't remember, but yeah, I did ask her. However, she really is into movies and television shows, and I thought, okay, well, I will ask her. The one way to find out kind of what he looks like, what actor does he look the most like? For those adoptees that aren't getting answers either, that's a good way of asking. It's the closest thing I've got.
It's somewhat non-threatening, I guess.
Yeah, some actor on General Hospital, so who knows? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So
So
handsome, I'm
he
sure.
is. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, I think that's pretty funny. Yeah, yeah. Very non-threatening. Very non-threatening, Haley. Yeah, yeah. My reunions took years and patience going through that, and it also gave me a lot of time to reflect. What is it I want from this? But it was a long process of reunion.
Do you have any advice for people that are searching or are in reunion?
What I would say would be to have patience, especially coming into a family, and especially, if they don't know about you. It's hard. I think it's important to know your own boundaries and to take care of yourself during that process and to take things slowly and try and reflect as you go through that process. And of course, to enjoy the moments of connectedness. There's a lot of light. I mean, I've had a lot of light and a lot of happiness and lots of laughs and good feelings, even though it didn't turn out the way, I had wanted it to and had hoped it to. I still have, it's wonderful. So I think I would also suggest to really take the time, that goes along with reflecting to really see how you're feeling during the process of reunion and connect with yourself and not push them. I think be aware of what you're walking into. I think that that's important.
It's really hard on everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard on everyone, and it's such a huge adjustment.
Yes, it is. It's difficult. And I still have not met one sister. She has still refused not to meet me. It's just too hard on her. I'll get a Christmas card from her, but she won't. It's too hard for her to meet me for some reason. Isn't that interesting? So
That is very interesting.
I know one day I will, but not going to have. There's another one, situation where acceptance. I'm not going to really have a relationship with her. She has her own issues and about this whole thing. So yeah, and it's not me personally. It's just it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I've really learned a lot along this journey and this reunion path, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I have learned a lot about how I feel about my adoptive parents, and with everything, and it's just a tough thing. But I have to say that searching is one of the best things that I've done for myself. After marrying my husband and having my children, the next best thing was searching for myself, getting answers, and meeting my biological family and knowing my roots, knowing my history, where I came from. I didn't feel like, I was born under a rock somewhere anymore. I felt connected to the earth. That is so important. And I know a lot of adoptees, we just feel unrooted.
Mm-hmm.
you know Finding my birth family rooted me, in with earth, with people. And I have to say, I'm so glad I remembered this. I think one of the first things I noticed after reuniting and meeting my birth mother and seeing pictures of birth family is one of the first things was immediate was there was no more wondering. No more wondering. Do you know what I mean? Did you?
Yes.
Yes, it was like an immediate, there was no more wondering. I felt, Haley, like I had spent all my life, and I was in my mid 40s when I found my birth mom. I felt like I had spent my whole life, no matter where I was, I subconsciously, I'm looking at, oh, do I look like that person? Oh, maybe, maybe I'm connected. People on TV. Oh, it was just a need. It was part of my psyche, the wondering. And then you'd hear, you'd have friends or people would say to you, offhandedly, "Oh my gosh, I saw this lady in the store and she looked just like you. Are you related to so and so?" And then you think, "Oh, I wonder if I am related to them. Maybe I am." That was just a part of my psyche. And once I met my birth mother, that was the end of the wandering, the end of it. I had a connection to people here.
I definitely know what you're talking about. I experienced that too.
Mm-hmm. Strangers and just, yeah, isn't that? Yeah, I think that that's a common thing. Even though I had my own children, it was still that pure. It was that pure. I hadn't seen anybody in my whole life at a pure level that resembled me. I'm grateful I have the connection with my birth family, and I'm still hopeful that things will be better one day. But if they're not, I'm okay.
So you talked a little earlier about doing some self-care when you're in that first reunion process. Is there anything specifically, any counseling or other healing things that you've done to help you through this process?
Well, I have had lots of therapy. I highly recommend that. It's just really helped me a lot to talk about things, figure things out, because there's only so much talking sometimes you can do to your friends or
Mm.
family. And, a therapist, can really help you see things that you might miss. Therapy is, I think, really important. And also, I am a reader, so I have couldn't get enough reading in the beginning when I was in reunion and meeting my family, and even beforehand when I was doing my search. I had read everything. I mean, there weren't as many books at that time that there are now. There's so many good books out there and websites, and I would really suggest trying to read and see that you're not alone, with these other stories and other reunion stories from other adoptees. It just is comforting and therapeutic to hear other stories, and you'll find, yourself in these stories. And so I think websites, I think all the books that are out there today and memoirs and stories are really good for adoptees. And there will be more adoptees because they're doing, all the states in the United States, they're finally state by state, they're becoming open states and people can find families, so that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting so far into it. We're almost out of time. Isn't that amazing? Is there anything that we didn't
Yes.
talk about that you really want to touch on?
I guess I want to say that I've come to accept the ambivalence in my life. There was a time when I was trying to, make it black and white and either or it had to be this way, or I had to feel that way, or I should feel this way, but I should feel that way. And I've just come to accept the fact that my life is ambivalent in many factions of my life. When it comes to the adoption, there isn't anything I can do about my feelings. I'm grateful that I was adopted by people who loved me and who did the best that they could, but there were issues, and we haven't had an ambivalent relationship with that. And my birth mom, and my birth family, I have ambivalent feelings about them, and I love them, and yet I'm sad. I just want to say that for those that are out there, that those feelings are okay. That is how it is sometimes. I know that probably people have said that to you. Oh, you must be so grateful you were adopted. And And it's like, oh, no, it's not. It's not like that. It's a yes and a no. I'm grateful I was adopted, but I'm not grateful to be an adoptee. I guess that's kind of how it is.
I have those same feelings. It's very hard to explain, right? Because if I hadn't been adopted, I wouldn't be in the life I am and have, and you wouldn't have those experiences. It's such a weird thing to think about.
It is. Yeah, because I'm grateful for the life I've had. Yeah. I'm happy for the life I've had. And yet I'm sad that it is this way. It's just a very ambivalent feeling, and it'll never go away. I think it just is what it is, right?
That's right. It is what it is. Oh, well, thanks so much for sharing with us. I really appreciate hearing your story. I'd love to wrap up with you by doing our recommended resources segment. And if it's okay, I would love to start. I'm guessing that you have seen Karen Pickle's blog before. All right. Well, she just had this article out that I read today. We're listening to your story today, and I'm thinking this is the perfect article to talk about. So, Karen Pickle, she's an adoptee. She's a blogger. She's on Twitter. She's an editor of some of the anthologies that you've probably seen.
Yes, her name's familiar.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So the article that I read was What We Mean When We Say Adoption Reunion. And she's talking about the language of just using the word reunion. And she starts out by talking about a family reunification day, which is what they talk about in the foster care system when they are able to reunify a family that has had their kids put in the foster care system for whatever reason. And then she compares that to adoption reunion. And then there's just a couple of great lines I'm going to read here. Talking about adoptee reunion. We go into it hoping for reunification. Then we're disappointed when all we get is reunion. And later on she says, perhaps a better word to use than reunion is reconnection. So I won't spoil the whole thing for you, but it's very, very fascinating to just think about the language that we use, just talking about what the differences are, and reunion isn't always what we expect.
Reconnection. Yes, that's exactly what it is, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. I will enjoy that article. I will look it up when I get done here.
Great. So what would you like to share with us?
I like the Anya Project and their anthologies. They're written by adult adoptees. I think that it informs other adoptees of other adoptees' emotional journeys, and for us to read and feel connected. There are 5 books that are in their anthology series. You can find the books on Amazon. The last one, I happen to have an essay in that. It's called Flip the Script. They also have other books, Perpetual Child. There are 5 books there, working on their 6th book, and they're great anthologies. I would recommend them. I like them a lot.
Those sound wonderful. I haven't actually had a chance to read any of them, so I'll be sure to make sure to order one, and thank you. I'll put a link to those in the show notes. I saw on your website that you're working on a project yourself.
Yes, I am writing a memoir about my search and my reunion, and dealing with my parents who became ill while I was going through reconnectedness with my with my birth family. I hope to be done with that in about a year. I've been working on it for a few years now, and to share with other adoptees, and hopefully it'll help someone if they need that, or just as we say, the connectedness, and just seeing their own story in my story could help someone else.
Oh, absolutely. Great. We look forward to seeing that when it comes out.
Okay. All right. I'll let you know.
Yeah. How can our listeners contact you if they'd like to chat with you further about your story?
They can find me. I have a website, easydianewheaton.com. I'm on Facebook, Diane Wheaton Writer 1. I'm on Twitter, Diane_Wheaton, Instagram as well, Diane_Wheaton. So I'm easy to find. be great. I'd love to connect with other adoptees as well, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you again so much for our time, Diane. I really enjoyed hearing your story, and yeah, it was really great to talk with you.
Yeah, same here, Haley. It was great. And thank you for having me. That was wonderful.
If you have more questions for Diane, or to thank her for sharing with us, find her on Twitter at Diane_Wheaton. To find the show notes, ask a question, or share your adoptee story, visit our website, adopteeson.com. We also love to chat with you on Twitter or Instagram at AdopteesOn. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/AdopteesOnPodcast. Today, would you share our show with someone in your adoptee community? Maybe a Facebook group you're a part of, or an adoptee friend you've made on Twitter. We would truly appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Let's talk again soon. I almost forgot to thank you guys for all your feedback and emails. I really want to thank S01 Adoptee from the US iTunes store for leaving us a review. She writes, "It is so refreshing to hear an adult adoptee perspective in a podcast. This is not sugar-coated for a non-adopted audience. The guests express what it's actually like to be inside an adoptee mind, not how society tells us to feel and regurgitate on command. Thank you for making this podcast." You're welcome. So glad you're listening and loving the show. Thanks for your feedback, and I look forward to connecting with more of you soon.